For my instructional design proposal, I chose to redesign a training module I'm currently facilitating at work on a weekly recurring basis. I'm part of a team that trains the sales and retention portions of a 4-week frontline immersion training program for new and existing corporate employees. The sales portion is well polished, but the one day we spend on retention training needs a complete redesign. The materials and agenda we're currently using are abbreviated Current Frontline Employee Transition Training. Participants and trainers have expressed feedback that the training does not fit cohesively into the rest of the Basecamp training sections and does not achieve the program learning objectives of understanding day-to-day operations of the retention frontline operations. I am creating a proposal to present to sales operations, Basecamp program, and sales training leadership to redesign the one-day retention training from the ground up. Throughout this presentation, I will follow the instructional design process covered in this course to inform my redesign of the training. The Basecamp curriculum is scheduled over 4 weeks, which covers 4 categories of frontline operations. The participants spend their first Monday with HR orientation, and then they complete a week of sales training Tuesday through Friday. Week 2, they spend 6 days in customer service, learning customer service tools such as Promo, Community, Bundle Calculator, Compass, and Verify tool. This is necessary before retention training because many of the tools that retention agents use are the same tools that base campers will be trained on during their time in CSC. This allows us to spend more time during the 8 hours that we have on actual retention specific training material. After we finish training retention on Monday of week 3, the participants go back to finish out their second week of customer service training, and then finally week 4 they have their technician or in-home services trainings to finish out their Basecamp experience. So retention falls right smack in the middle of all of this whole Basecamp experience. The participants, we have many factors that make up the participant engagement level. So there is new hire participants who are new to the company. There are participants who have been with the company I've seen as long as 19 years. So that will influence how we want to structure the training. In addition, their relationship, we have participants from all across corporate functions. So some have a very close relationship, might even be from the retention department, whereas others may be pretty far removed, such as sling employees who don't deal with retention a whole lot. In addition, we have various levels of learners, different positions in the company, anywhere from entry level to executive level. So we need to take into account all of these different factors in our participant engagement level while we decide what we want to include in the curriculum and how we want to structure that. The ideal retention training will balance both Basecamp program goals and retention operation goals. On the Basecamp side, we want participants to be able to appreciate and support frontline employees who are critical to business operations and understand the downstream impact of their decisions that they make in their corporate roles and potentially the impact that those have on frontline employees and operations. On the retention operations side, we want participants to understand basic retention save flow, save tactics, different ways that we try to save customers from canceling, and the role of the retention department in the customer lifecycle. In addition, participants should analyze the relationship between metrics, compensation, and behavior, and how we use these metrics to drive behavior in a certain direction based on company goals. Finally, participants should evaluate strengths and pain points of the retention team so that they can be recognized for things that they're doing well and potentially share those best practices across various other departments and shine light on some pain points and ways that people in other departments may be able to assist in making operations smoother for the retention department. There are 4 main groups of stakeholders when considering the planning of the retention training for the Basecamp program. Of course, the Basecamp program administration is invested in what will be taught throughout the program through all 4 of the frontline capacities. Basecamp is a portion of the sales Basecamp training. So that falls under the scope of the entire Basecamp program. Since it is part of the sales frontline operations, it is a separate skill under sales, but it still falls under the same operational management team. So that team will have a heavy influence and opinion about what is taught and how this department is represented throughout the rest of the company. In addition, sales training and support is responsible for developing the training material and ultimately delivering the training material on a recurring basis, since the trainers who actually train the material are part of this team. Finally, the learners are invested in what they will be learning during their Basecamp experience, especially those who come from or are closely related to the retention department for their regular roles at corporate. All learners will want to take something different out of their Basecamp experience, so we want to make sure that we're giving them relevant information so that they can have a holistic understanding of all frontline operations, including retention. The purpose of a learner analysis is to analyze the orientation of the learner with the learning material, the material that is wanting to be trained. For the learner analysis for the retention training, I am following the Dick, Carey, and Carey approach from the text. The reason I chose this approach is because physical learner characteristics such as age and gender play a smaller role in understanding the needs of the learners for this particular program. The intended audience spans across the entire corporate or organization, so it's going to be a big makeup of various ages, gender. For the most part, education level should be pretty standard since we are dealing with corporate employees who are required to have a college education, and all of the participants for the retention training will have been together through the initial part of the Basecamp program. So they'll have been trained together through sales and CSE and come in with the same level of entry knowledge. Some of the aspects that the Dick, Carey, and Carey model addresses are the entry level skills, which, as we said, should be pretty even across the board for all of the participants. Prior knowledge of a topic area can differ depending on the participant's relationship with the retention department, so we need to account for a spectrum of knowledge of the topic area and build in discussions to account for that. We do currently have a survey in place that allows learners to share their feedback and evaluate the curriculum as it is now. So we will be taking that feedback to understand their attitudes towards content and potential delivery system, how the participants feel about the way we train it now, and there's a question in that survey for suggestions for improvement of the program. So within that survey, we ask 5 questions that we're going to be focusing on to analyze what the learners feel or think about the training so that we can kind of understand where they're coming from. Those questions are listed on the slideshow here so you can read them, and in the next slide we will be discussing the learner comments in response to those questions, comments and ratings. Based on the surveys collected regarding the current retention training format, participants have expressed these thoughts: that the training could be a little bit more polished and streamlined, and participants felt that the training needed more real-life retention calls and scenarios that would be helpful in understanding and appreciating the skills required to keep customers connected. When I asked the other 3 trainers, in addition to myself, for comments on the training, none felt positively about the current training format. We all had similar sentiments shown here in the quote on the slide. Based on both participant and trainer feedback, all parties involved are optimistic that a redesigned curriculum can correct these issues. For the redesigned curriculum, I'm suggesting a structure that more closely resembles the approved retention call flow for a price value cancel call. There are 6 sections that should be covered to ensure the major aspects of a retention agent's job is understood. Within each section, I have listed suggested subtopics that will be covered in more depth during the content design portion of this project. In the following 3 slides, I will list specific measurable learning objectives that will demonstrate how this approach will meet the learning goals we have established. Based on the participant feedback that more real-life examples of retention calls were needed to make the training more impactful and applicable, I am suggesting a case study activity using real pre-selected retention calls demonstrating the concepts being taught in class. Participants will be asked to apply their newly acquired retention knowledge to navigate these calls, sort of a choose-your-own-adventure approach. The calls will either be played in clips as the participants navigate their responses or can be transcribed to be delivered in a written format. The advantages of a case study approach are numerous, but one of the most important benefits, in my opinion, is that this form of learning assessment requires the participants to put themselves in the mindset of an actual retention agent. They must react to real customer responses, which can sometimes be unexpected. In addition, we'll be asking the participants to calculate their metrics based on the results of the case study solutions. This allows the participant to understand the pressure of a frontline agent's consideration for performance measures and how that may affect decision making. This slide shows the proposed agenda and time allotment for the new curriculum I'm suggesting. It includes breaks and lunches, and each topic is listed, as well as sections within the topic that will be covered and materials used for the training of that topic. Each topic module should follow a similar format, beginning with the participants learning the new material for the topic and a simple learning activity to retain the information. Next, we will play a call demonstrating the topic and how a real agent implements this skill in their call handling. Finally, we will assess the participants' grasp of the topic by presenting a case study asking them to apply the skills to a retention scenario and calculating resulting metrics. This is an example of the content that would be covered in the introduction module. You will notice it looks familiar because we are teaching the participants the retention call flow, and the retention call flow is the basis of the content for the entire day. The learning materials will be given to the participants in the Participant Learning Guide, and a corresponding facilitator guide with notes and training instructions will be given to the trainers. The learners will also be employing numerous company tools that will be included in their Basecamp Access profile requests when they enroll in the program. Reviewing this training material often will be key in the continued relevancy and success of the training. Both ongoing as well as periodic long-term evaluation processes have already been established for all components of the Basecamp program. These evaluation plans include the participant surveys, training and operation calibration meetings, Basecamp program monthly meetings, and semi-annual program review meetings. The surveys submitted by participants based on their feedback of the training should provide a strong basis for future changes needed in the curriculum.